Greetings, Guardians, my name is Bife here. This is clearly the penultimate week of the seasonal story for the Season of the Witch, and actually I wanted to hold the critique this week. I've been doing it regularly, but, you know, lots of the stuff that I would have to say is kind of just rehashed from previous weeks, and I don't think it's useful to you or the Bungie devs right now. Not to mention, the next time I give critique will be after the finale, and that will be more of a critique of the season of the whole, and, you know, just to give a vague idea of how everything in combination is done. Some overviews and some vague thoughts on a much more sort of wide lens scale. So, with that said, we're holding the critique this week, and I'm just going over what happened in the story for those of you who need to catch up. There were a few interesting plot points, but sadly this does sort of fill that void of the sort of week when everything is slow. This is really more of a prelude to the last week than it is its own separate chapter. Everything is clearly building to a climax and the storylines are coming to a close, but there isn't as much interesting stuff as I wish there was. Granted, there are some things, and they include the following. First of all, Immaru and everyone else seems to be predicting that Xivu Arath is going to deploy her true forces very soon. Secondly, Ikora's concern about Eris is continuing to grow, and their friendship is being slightly tested even if it is still a bedrock upon which the entire season can operate. And thirdly, there is actually a new update to the Imbaru engine, which leaves a few questions and potentially needs a few answers. We're going to talk about all of these, and also I'm going to give you some really brief predictions at the very end to how the season might go and conclude. So, first things first, Immaru had a warning for us this week. That warning came with the dire assessment that even with our remarkable efforts in tithing to Eris, she still didn't have anywhere near the required amount of tithed destruction to take on Xivu Arath. This comes with him making a very clear promise that if anything bad happens and if it's clear that we're not going to win, he's out of here. He is leaving quickly. He even threw his loyalty to Savathûn out the window with a statement where he notes that he just kind of wants to survive, and even says, hey, maybe I'll do the Finch thing and go freelance, which... Huh? Okay, that's not quite what I expected to hear. I know Immaru has always been kind of hesitant around the plans of Savathûn, but I feel like his constant belief that Savathûn is running circles around the Guardians as well maybe implied that he had more belief in her. And at this stage in time, maybe he is just making a sense of drama out of it just so he can mislead the Guardians again, but I mean, I don't know, it's kind of interesting to hear that in particular out of him. That's also worth remembering because he also made it clear that he enjoys his position as is without Savathûn. He enjoys the position of power that he has over the Lucent Hive and believes that he's a natural fit for leadership and to be a general. Immaru's place in all of this still seems a little unclear as a result, but the endgame for him, at first glance, may appear to be survival, but might be something slightly more. I still don't think we can judge his motives completely at the moment, especially given that he is the ghost of the Witch Queen, the god of deception, Savathûn, and that makes me assume that he's got cunning plans of his own, assuming that ghosts take on some of the traits of their guardians, or at least aligned in a sense that they would be able to work well with them. You know, Immaru has to be able to be some kind of dynamic pairing to Savathûn if he's going to be her ghost. So with that said, who knows, Immaru may have a card or two up his own sleeve, but he might also just be sitting there faithfully playing into Savathûn's hands, and it's just being told differently to us because that's part of it. Who knows? We also this week saw Eris Morn and Ikora get into a few rather heated conversations. Take a listen.
This has to stop. Throwing yourself into danger is not going to solve our problem. We have to step back and find another way.
You would put me in the library, and I would be so glad of it that I would never set foot outside its walls. But only I can stop Xivu Arath, and nothing is won by my complacency.
Eris, this is too much for you.
I am not so frail, Ikora.
I have never thought that.
Then do not treat me as such. You know that I am capable. And now you know of what? I have always had your trust, and you have never needed my forgiveness. Now please, I ask for your support.
Do you know what I see? A friend who takes risks because she doesn't want anyone else to. A friend who is too afraid to look away from disaster and thinks destroying herself is the only way to stop it.
I held back when Savathun took the light. I allowed others to go in my stead and take the revenge I am owed. But I made a promise to myself. I would be her ruin. We both value action in times of loss. Let me act. Let me be who I am.
I don't want you lost to this.
Then help me finish it.
The concern of Ikora is nothing new, but it comes as Eris has made clear her dedication to the power that she'll be able to gain from the sword logic and the tithes that we bring her, power that she'll be able to wield against the forces of Xivu Arath and Savathun, but power that can all too easily corrupt as well, as Ikora, I'm sure, is very keen to point out. Eris, of course, knows the corruption is a probable risk, but she also seems to believe that within the transformations and the tithes is the clear path to defeating the god of war. I made a video about this already, on the topic of how Eris might be able to win, but I think it's important to keep an open perspective going into this, and with that in mind, I still don't know definitively how Eris is going to do this, but I think she is capable of a victory all the same. The thing I don't trust, as I've said before, is the fact that she's interacting with all this power in the domain of Savathun and under the eye of Savathun's plans. The Witch Queen, even in death, is one of the most devious and enigmatic and, frankly, unpredictable foes that we've ever faced. It's entirely possible that every single one of our moves up until this point was predicted by the Witch Queen, and that she knows exactly how all these things will pan out. If that's true, then we should truly fear for Eris. Not fearing Eris herself, I should make that clear, fearing for her. The forces that she has to contend with, the hive magic and sword logic-based tithing that consumes her, it's all something that I don't know if I necessarily trust at its core anymore, partly because all of those rituals seem to take place in the Oubliette, and we know that it is in close proximity to something remarkably dangerous, the Imbaru engine. Also, lastly, and perhaps most troubling of all, let's talk about the Imbaru engine again. Last week we saw it open up, and there was something to it. There was a challenge that had to be set. We were told to demonstrate our cunning by finding the correct chests around the room. We all did so, and it was kind of clear that the Imbaru engine was actually going to be more. Now the shape of what that is has revealed itself. By getting another opaque card, we can actually pick up the Gift of Strength, which is part of the Deck of Whispers. When we have that gift, we're able to unlock the next stage of the Imbaru engine. Deep within, we discovered a new set of trials, one that required us to prove our strength instead of our cunning. Discerning the correct pattern amongst the various knights and thralls that we needed to kill was crucial to passing this test. The thing to really focus on, though, in my opinion, is the greater pattern within the engine that has begun to emerge. First, we needed to prove our cunning, a test clearly designed in reverence to Savathun. Now we need to prove our strength, something that clearly seems designed in reverence to Xivu Arath. It appears that next week we may be focusing on seeking out curiosity, thus emboldening and potentially standing in reverence to Oryx, the Taken King. At that point, it would make sense. After all, when you go to the Seasonal Triumphs section under Secrets, you can clearly see that we have a triumph for Savathun, aka the triumph labeled the Mother Morph. We also have this week the trial of the Night Morph, which is labeled and clearly is referring to Xivu Arath. All of those are clear definitions given to us by the Books of Sorrow, by the way. But then, underneath, we're missing not one, but two triumphs. One is surely called the King Morph, but what is the fourth and final one? It makes me wonder if perhaps there's another secret buried deeper in the Imbaru engine, and if it is perhaps related to our fourth hive god, the god of vengeance. I don't know. That's a load of Imbaru for the moment, kind of ironically. But I think that all of this is pointing towards the idea once again that even in death, Savathun is running circles around all of us, and we can only do so much to stop her. Next week is probably going to be the conclusion to the seasonal story. There may be a few tidbits to pick up on by the end of the season, but based on what we've seen thus far, there is going to be not much more past this point. So as a result, here are my predictions for some things that will happen at the end of the season. I think Xivu Arath is going to be defeated, but barely. I think the victory will require the great sacrifice that Eris and everyone attached to the situation didn't want to have to make, and I believe that somehow Savathun will be the real victor in all of this once again. And that's our deal with Immaru fulfilled somehow. That's the moment at which Immaru will bring her back, and she will then give us the information that we've so sought, so that everyone, herself included, can survive. If she has planned ahead well enough, she will indeed know what we're looking for, and she will know what to tell us in that moment, even if it is going to be jarring for her waking up in the moments just as previously she perceived us killing her. We'll gain answers we seek. The secrets to following the witness will be within our grasp, but I think we'll have to stop and contemplate the cost. To be even more clear, I don't think Eris Morn is going to betray us willingly, or will fall to the seductive power that will suddenly be within her grasp permanently. I think her hand will be forced, or that Savathun will have maneuvered her into a trap of sorts, or will have simply outplayed everyone. I can see Eris finding the means to outsmart Xivu Arath. I don't see anyone outsmarting Savathun even in death. And ultimately, I don't know if we're all, right now, just playing into her hands, regardless of how virtuous our motives seem. Next week should be the final week of the seasonal story. Expect it to be something that I'll cover as soon as it releases, something that should go out on that Tuesday, but in the meantime, that's all from me for now. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like, and tell me what you think is going to happen at the end of the season. Do you think that we're going to be able to defeat Xivu Arath's forces? Do you think that we're going to see Savathun resurrected? What of Eris? What of Ikora? What of everything else that happens? Asa is still linked into this ritual. What will be her fate? What will this mean for the various relationships that Eris has fostered throughout the tower and throughout the space of the system? Who knows where all this leads? But I feel something cataclysmic coming, and I hope I am wrong. But of course, that's not the only thing that helps out if you want to comment on all of that stuff. It'd also be useful for you to hit subscribe and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications and feed the algorithm that is YouTube. But as per usual, know that your viewership as always is quite enough for me, and that in the meantime, my name is Bife. Por audacia ad astra. I'll see you, Starside.